Poor girl forced to marry a 65-year-old millionaire. 1 week later, she could not believe the truth. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The rain came down steady, a gray curtain that swallowed the little college town. Water streaked the windows of coffee shops and ran down the sides of worn brick buildings. The sidewalks glistened, empty except for one young woman. Anna Carter gripped her worn handbag to her chest as she hurried along the narrow street. The soles of her shoes were thin, already soaked. Her hair clung to her face. She kept walking because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant facing the truth that her life was closing in on her. Her mother's medical bills were past due. The landlord had slipped another warning under the door that morning. The bakery where she had been working had shut down the previous week. Every direction she turned seemed to end in another locked door. She whispered to herself, just one more day. Keep going, one more day. No. When the phone rang in her pocket, she almost did not answer. The number was unknown. She hesitated, then pressed it to her ear. A calm, commanding male voice spoke her name. Miss Carter, I believe you need help. Anna froze in the rain. Who is this? My name is Raymond Hale. Meet me tonight. Brooks Bistro. 7 o'clock. His words were sharp, leaving no room for questions. The line went dead. Anna lowered the phone, heart hammering. She knew the name. Everyone did. Raymond Hale. 65 years old, one of the wealthiest men in the state, a man whispered about in business circles like a myth. Why would he call her? Hours later, she found herself stepping through the heavy wooden doors of Brooks Bistro. Warm light spilled across marble floors. The aroma of roasted coffee and fresh bread filled the air. It was the kind of place she had never dared to enter before. Her thrift store dress clung damp against her skin. She smoothed it anyway, trying to hide the frayed seams. At a corner table sat Raymond Hale. His silver hair was combed neatly, his tailored suit immaculate. His eyes, pale and piercing, followed her every move. He lifted one hand, inviting her to sit. Anna swallowed hard and walked forward. Her chair scraped softly against the floor as she lowered herself across from him. Why am I here? She asked. Her voice trembled despite her effort to sound firm. Raymond studied her a long moment before speaking. His tone was calm, almost casual, but carried the weight of a verdict. I know about your debts. I know about your mother's illness, and I know you have no way out. Anna's breath caught. How could you possibly? He interrupted smoothly. Because I make it my business to know. And I am here to offer you a solution. The waiter set down 2 glasses of wine, then stepped back into the shadows. Anna's hands remained folded in her lap, clenched tight. What kind of solution? Raymond placed a small velvet box on the table. He opened it with a quiet click. Inside, a diamond ring glimmered under the soft light. The brilliance of it nearly blinded her. Marry me, he said. The words fell heavy between them. Anna's eyes widened. She shook her head as if she had misheard. Excuse me? You heard me, Raymond said. His voice did not waver. This is not about romance. This is about arrangement. A contract. Anna laughed once, sharp and hollow. You cannot be serious. You do not even know me. I know enough, he replied. You are young. You are unattached. And you are desperate enough to consider this. I do not need love. I need a wife. A companion in name. Someone to stand beside me in public, to preserve my estate, to silence the board. Think of it as a business transaction. Anna's pulse raced. You are asking me to sell myself. I am offering you survival, Raymond said, leaning forward. You want your mother's treatments paid for. You want security. I can give you all of that. In return, you give me your name beside mine. Anna stared at the ring, at its cruel sparkle. The rain outside tapped against the window like a clock counting down. Her pride screamed to refuse. But behind that scream came the image of her mother, pale in a hospital bed, struggling for breath. Her voice broke when she whispered, I need time to think. Do not take too long. Raymond warned. The offer does not last forever. Anna stood, her chair scraping harshly this time. She turned and left the warm glow of the bistro for the cold, wet night, her heart heavier than the storm around her. The night after the strange proposal, Anna sat at the kitchen table in her small apartment. The rain had not stopped, dripping through the cracks in the roof and filling a pan she had placed on the floor. The only light came from a single lamp with a flickering bulb. Bills were spread across the table like a battlefield, envelopes stamped in red letters warning of overdue balances. She pressed her hands against her face, trying to hold herself together, but her body shook from the weight of everything pressing down at once. Her mother coughed weakly in the next room. The sound tore through the silence like glass breaking. Anna hurried to her side, finding her mother pale and exhausted in bed, a thin blanket pulled up to her chin. The air smelled faintly of medicine and damp walls. "Do not worry, Mama," Anna whispered, forcing a smile. "I will find a way." Her mother's eyes, tired but tender, searched her daughter's face. "Anna, you work so hard. You deserve better than this." Anna swallowed the lump in her throat. She wanted to say she could fix everything, but the truth hung heavy. The bakery had closed. The rent was overdue. The hospital would not continue treatment without payment. The world was crumbling, and all she had left was hope and stubbornness. Later that evening, Anna wrapped herself in a worn coat and stepped outside. The wind cut sharp as she walked toward the corner store to buy bread with the last few dollars in her purse. On the street, she saw posters for an upcoming charity gala, the kind of glittering event Raymond Hale was known to host. His name glowed in golden letters across the paper. She stopped and stared, her chest tightening. This was the man who had dropped a ring box on the table and asked her to marry him as if it were nothing more than signing a contract. Her mind replayed his words. "I can offer you survival. I will pay for your mother's treatments. I will secure your future. All I ask is your name beside mine." The offer felt like a chain around her neck, but at the same time, it was the only door left open. She hated herself for even considering it. Yet every thought returned to the image of her mother lying in bed, her breath shallow and labored. Pride did not pay for medicine. Dreams did not keep the lights on. She walked home slowly, the bread wrapped under her arm. Inside, she placed it on the table and sat across from her younger brother, who was bent over his homework by candlelight. He looked up and gave her a hopeful smile. "Anna, everything will be okay, right?" She forced her lips to curve upward. "Yes, everything will be okay." But as she said it, her heart twisted. She knew she was lying. That night she barely slept. She tossed under the thin blanket, thoughts colliding in her mind. The memory of Raymond's cold gaze haunted her. His offer was not romance. It was business, a cage of luxury disguised as salvation. But if she refused, what would happen? She pictured her mother's condition worsening. She pictured eviction. She pictured her brother losing even the little stability they had left. By dawn, the decision pressed on her chest like a weight she could not move. She sat by the window, watching the first light cut through the clouds, and whispered to herself, "I have no choice." No. The knock on the door came mid-morning. A black car idled outside, gleaming despite the puddles on the road. A man in a tailored suit handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter written in clean, precise handwriting. "Miss Carter, I will expect your answer tonight. Raymond Hale." Her hands trembled as she folded the paper. The world outside seemed to spin faster, pulling her along with it. She looked at her mother, fragile on the bed, and then at her brother, innocent and trusting. The path ahead was terrifying, but she knew she was already standing on it. Anna pressed her eyes shut, fighting back tears. She whispered again, not to convince her mother or her brother this time, but to convince herself. "I will do what I must." And with that, she realized she was walking toward a future she had never chosen, yet could not escape. That evening, the same black car waited outside Anna's building. Its polished surface reflected the fading light as though it had been carved from onyx. The driver opened the door without a word. Anna stood on the steps, clutching her small handbag. Her stomach knotted. She looked back once at the window where her mother rested, and her brother waved weakly from behind the glass. Then she stepped into the car, knowing that each mile carried her deeper into a world she had never belonged to. The drive was silent, except for the steady hum of the engine. Streetlights blurred into streaks of gold as the car sped through the city. By the time they passed through the wrought iron gates of the Hale estate, Anna's breath caught. The mansion loomed against the night sky, its white stone walls washed in floodlights, every column and window glowing like a monument. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress. Inside, the floors gleamed like mirrors. Chandeliers sparkled overhead. A line of staff stood waiting in black uniforms, their expressions unreadable. Anna tightened her grip on her handbag as she followed the driver down a long hall. At the end was a wide set of oak doors. They opened slowly, revealing Raymond Hale seated at a massive desk. He gestured toward a chair across from him. On the desk lay a thick stack of papers, a velvet box, and a fountain pen. Anna sat, her heart pounding in her ears. "You've thought about my offer," Raymond said. It was not a question. Anna forced herself to meet his gaze. "Yes, I will do it. For my family." His eyes did not soften. He slid the papers toward her. "This is the agreement. Read it carefully. Sign where indicated." Her fingers shook as she flipped through the pages. The words were written in precise legal language, but their meaning was cold and simple. She was to act as his wife, appear with him at public events, maintain the illusion of companionship. In return, her mother's hospital expenses would be paid in full. Her debts would be cleared. A stipend would be provided for her living costs. Anna's breath quickened when she reached the section labeled Conditions. 1. No expectation of physical affection. 2. Appear at no fewer than 6 public functions as Mrs. Hale. 3. No disclosure of the arrangement under penalty of breach. 4. Maintain residence within the Hale estate for a minimum of 12 months. 5. No interference with his private business matters. Each line felt like a shackle. She closed her eyes, hearing her mother's cough echo in her memory. Then she picked up the pen and signed her name. The sound of the nib scratching against the paper seemed to echo through the room. Raymond nodded once, collected the papers, and sealed them inside a leather folder. Then he pushed the velvet box across the desk. "Wear it," he said. Anna opened the box. The diamond ring glittered with an almost cruel beauty. Her throat tightened as she slid it onto her finger. The weight of it was heavy, not just in gold but in what it meant. Raymond stood. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Hale." The staff ushered her through the mansion, leading her to a grand suite, prepared with gilded mirrors and a bed big enough to swallow her whole. But despite the luxury, the room felt empty, cold, untouched by warmth. She sank onto the edge of the mattress and stared at the ring on her finger until her eyes blurred. That night, she lay awake in the dark, the silence pressing on her chest. In one day, she had signed away her freedom. Yet, somewhere deep inside, she told herself it was not forever. It was for her mother. It was for survival. Still, the question burned in her heart as sleep refused to come. Had she saved her family, or had she just sold her soul? Morning light spilled across the high windows of the Hale estate, chasing away the night shadows that had kept Anna awake. She rose from the edge of the enormous bed and touched the unfamiliar silk sheets, wondering if she had wandered into someone else's life. The silence of the mansion pressed around her. Then a knock sounded on the door. A housekeeper stepped inside, bowing slightly. "Mrs. Hale, breakfast will be served in 20 minutes. Mr. Hale will join you." Anna blinked at the title. It felt strange, as though the word wife had been stamped onto her without warning. She dressed quickly in one of the modest gowns hanging in the wardrobe, clearly prepared for her, each one tailored to her size. It unnerved her to realize that Raymond had known her measurements before she had even set foot in this house. Downstairs, the dining room stretched longer than her entire apartment. Raymond sat at the far end of a table polished to a mirror shine. Crystal glasses sparkled in the light. Silver utensils aligned perfectly beside porcelain plates. A chef placed delicate dishes in front of them before vanishing into the kitchen. Anna sat stiffly, trying not to let her nerves show. She lifted her fork but found it hard to eat under Raymond's pale gaze. He cut into his food with surgical precision, silent as a statue. Finally, he spoke. "You will need training, etiquette, posture, conversation. Appearances are everything. My assistant will begin your schedule today. Anna nodded, though her heart raced. She wanted to protest that she was not a doll to be trained, but she kept her lips sealed. Pride would not pay hospital bills. The following days became a blur of lessons. A poised instructor taught her which fork belonged to which course, how to glide across a ballroom floor without stepping on a partner's shoes, and how to stand gracefully under the gaze of cameras. Anna stumbled more than once. During one lesson, she nearly tripped on the hem of a gown, earning a sharp frown from the tutor. Another time, she confused the wine glasses and flushed with embarrassment when corrected. Yet she refused to quit. Late at night, after the house grew quiet, she practiced in front of the mirror in her suite. She balanced books on her head, rehearsed polite smiles, and repeated phrases until her voice no longer trembled. One afternoon, Raymond entered the drawing room unannounced. Anna was mid-practice, spinning slowly in her borrowed gown. She froze, cheeks burning. "You are determined," he observed, his tone unreadable. She straightened her shoulders. "If I must stand beside you, then I will not embarrass you." For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Not warmth exactly, but acknowledgement. "Good," he said. Then he turned and left, his footsteps echoing down the hall. That night, Anna sat by the window overlooking the manicured gardens. The fountain in the courtyard sparkled under the moonlight. She whispered to herself, "One day, I will open my bakery. One day, this will all make sense." Her dream became her anchor. Even as she stumbled through the world of wealth and judgment, she clung to the image of a small shop with her mother's name above the door, the scent of bread filling the air. Though the mansion felt like a cage, Anna's resilience gave her strength. Each mistake became another step forward. Each correction hardened her resolve. She knew the world would mock her as an imposter, but she was determined not to break. In the quiet hours, when doubt gnawed at her, she repeated the same promise: "I am doing this for my family. I will endure. I will survive." And in that silent vow, she found a spark of courage that even the coldest marble halls could not extinguish. The night of the first gala arrived sooner than Anna had expected. The mansion buzzed with preparations. Tailors adjusted her gown, stylists pinned her hair into an elegant twist, and a makeup artist carefully brushed color onto her cheeks. The mirror reflected someone she barely recognized, a polished version of herself, a young woman meant to stand at the side of a powerful man. Her heart pounded as the limousine rolled through the gates and down the glowing streets. Cameras already flashed outside the venue, eager to capture the image of Raymond Hale and his new bride. Anna clutched her small clutch purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. Beside her, Raymond sat calm and composed, as though this night were nothing more than another transaction. "Remember what you practiced," he said without turning his head. "Smile when appropriate, speak only when spoken to. Do not let them see hesitation." Anna nodded, swallowing hard. The car door opened, and a wall of sound greeted her reporters shouting questions, lights blinding her eyes. She stepped onto the carpeted walkway, her arm linked with Raymond's, trying to hold herself steady. Inside the glittering ballroom, chandeliers dripped with crystals, and golden music floated through the air. Guests in glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos filled the space, laughter and conversation rising in a steady hum. Anna felt every eye slide toward her, scanning her dress, her posture, her very existence. They were sharks circling in silk. As Raymond stepped aside to speak with a group of business partners, Anna found herself alone at the edge of the crowd. A woman with jeweled earrings and a sharp smile approached, her voice dripping with condescension. "So this is the new Mrs. Hale," the woman said, letting her gaze sweep over Anna's gown. "I must admit I expected someone different. Tell me, dear, which finishing school did you attend?" Heat rose in Anna's cheeks. She knew the woman was baiting her, waiting for a slip, a stumble that would confirm every suspicion that she was nothing more than a poor girl playing dress-up. Anna forced a polite smile. "I did not attend a finishing school, but I did attend the school of real life. That one teaches lessons you cannot buy." The woman blinked, clearly taken aback. Several nearby guests chuckled softly, impressed by Anna's quick wit. The sharp smile faltered, and the woman excused herself with a stiff nod. Raymond had been watching from across the room. For the first time, his expression shifted. The faintest trace of approval touched his eyes as he returned to her side. "Well handled," he murmured. Anna lifted her chin. Her voice was calm, though her heart still raced. "I told you. I will not embarrass you." The night continued, each conversation another test. Some guests dismissed her. Others whispered behind her back. But Anna held her ground. She remembered her practice, her promise, and her dream. When asked about her interests, she spoke of baking, of the joy of creating something with her hands. Some laughed, but others listened with surprising warmth, intrigued by her sincerity in a room full of masks. As the evening wound down, Raymond guided her onto the dance floor. The orchestra played a slow, dignified waltz. His hand rested lightly on her back, steadying her as they moved together. For a moment, the noise of the room faded, and she felt something unexpected: safety. When the song ended, applause filled the room. Anna curtsied slightly, her cheeks warm, and Raymond offered the faintest of smiles. Later, as they drove home through the quiet city streets, Anna gazed out the window at the glowing skyline. For the first time since signing the contract, she felt a flicker of pride. She had survived her first test. She had not only endured, but stood her ground with dignity. Raymond broke the silence. "Perhaps you are stronger than I thought." "No." Anna turned her head toward him. "I have had to be." Neither spoke after that, but the air in the car felt different. The distance between them had shifted, not closed completely, but narrowed just enough for the possibility of something new to begin. The days after the gala carried a different weight inside the Hale estate. For the first time, Anna noticed that Raymond no longer looked at her with the same distant chill. He remained controlled, always precise, but now his eyes lingered a little longer, as though he were trying to understand the woman who had stood her ground before the wolves of high society. One evening, after dinner, Anna wandered through the grand halls and found herself inside the library. The room stretched with rows of shelves, filled with volumes bound in leather and smelling faintly of dust and old ink. A fire crackled in the hearth, throwing soft light across the mahogany furniture. She trailed her fingers over the spines of the books, whispering titles under her breath, when a low voice startled her. "You read?" She turned quickly. Raymond stood at the doorway, his posture as straight as always. Yet there was something almost hesitant in the way he leaned against the frame. "I do," Anna replied softly. "Mostly novels. They take me out of myself, even just for a little while." Raymond stepped further inside. "My late wife. She used to sit in that very chair every night with a book in her hands." His eyes shifted toward the armchair by the fire. His voice, usually firm, carried a trace of something Anna had never heard before: loneliness. Anna lowered herself onto the chair, feeling the weight of his memory settle in the room. "It must be quiet here without her." "It is more than quiet," Raymond said. "It is hollow." The admission hung in the air. For the first time, Anna saw not the cold businessman, but a man worn by years of solitude, carrying the burden of power that had given him everything and yet left him alone. She folded her hands in her lap, gathering courage. "I know what it feels like to lose pieces of yourself. My father died when I was 16. My mother has been sick ever since. Sometimes I feel like I am living for her dream instead of mine." Raymond's gaze sharpened. "And what is your dream?" Her lips curved faintly, a fragile smile. "To open a bakery. A small one. Nothing grand. Just a place where the smell of bread fills the air and people come to feel at home. I want to name it after my mother. She deserves that." Silence fell again, but this time it was not cold. The firelight flickered against Raymond's face, softening his sharp features. "You speak of simple things," he said quietly, "but you make them sound priceless." "Oh," Anna looked at him steadily. "Because they are." Their eyes held for a long moment. Something unspoken passed between them, fragile but undeniable. Later that night, as Anna returned to her suite, she carried with her the echo of that conversation. She sat by the window, staring out at the gardens bathed in moonlight. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with confusion. She had entered this marriage as a prisoner of necessity, bound by a contract. Yet now, something different stirred. In her heart, she asked herself the question she could not yet say aloud. Was it possible that beneath all the marble walls and iron rules, there was a man capable of feeling? Raymond, in his own chamber across the hall, sat at his desk staring at the untouched glass of scotch beside him. For the first time in years, the silence did not feel empty. Instead, it was filled with the memory of Anna's voice, soft but steady, speaking of dreams he had long forgotten how to believe in. That night, both of them lay awake under the same roof, neither knowing that the walls between them were already beginning to crack. The warmth of the library conversation lingered only a few days before the storm struck. One morning, Anna stepped into the breakfast room and found Raymond sitting stiffly at the table, a newspaper spread before him. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold again. Without a word, he slid the paper across the polished surface. Her breath caught when she saw the headline printed in bold letters, "Young Wife or Gold Digger. The Truth Behind Raymond Hale's Sudden Marriage." Beneath it was a photograph of her from the gala, caught mid-smile, her hand on Raymond's arm. The article painted her as a schemer, a poor girl who had trapped an aging millionaire for money. It quoted unnamed sources who claimed the marriage was nothing more than a fraud. Anna's fingers trembled as she lowered the paper. "This is not true. You know this is not true." Raymond's expression did not change. "The board is furious. Investors are whispering. They believe you will ruin everything I have built." Her chest tightened. "And what do you believe?" Silence stretched between them, heavier than stone. His lack of defense pierced deeper than any insult in the newspaper. She felt her throat close, her voice breaking. "After everything I endured to stand at your side? You cannot even speak for me?" Raymond pushed back his chair and stood, his voice low. "The truth does not matter. Perception matters. And right now, perception is against us." The words sliced through her. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping across the floor. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of him. "Then you truly see me as nothing more than a contract?" "Duh." Without waiting for his reply, she turned and walked out. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble, echoing her heartbeat, echoing her fury. Behind the poisonous article was a hidden hand. That evening, as Anna tried to breathe through her humiliation, she overheard two members of the staff whispering in the hall. The words froze her in place. The story had been planted by none other than Raymond's estranged son, a man bitter for being cut out of his father's inner circle, desperate to destroy both the marriage and his father's name. Anna's chest ached. She could not bear the lies, the cruelty, the silence of the man who had promised her protection. She packed a small bag and left the estate before midnight. The mansion gates loomed tall behind her as the car carried her away. In the darkness of the road, she pressed her forehead against the glass, tears finally spilling free. She had traded her freedom for security, and now even that had crumbled into ashes. The contract had taken her dignity, the scandal had stolen her voice, and worst of all, Raymond's silence had broken the fragile hope that had begun to grow inside her heart. For the first time since she signed her name, Anna wondered if she had made the gravest mistake of her life. Anna spent the following days in a small rented room above a bakery on the edge of town. The scent of rising dough filled the air each morning, reminding her of the dream she once whispered to Raymond. But instead of comfort, the smell only deepened her ache. She kept the curtains closed, afraid to see the stares of neighbors who had read the papers. Whispers followed her when she stepped outside. She was no longer Anna Carter, the devoted daughter. She was Anna Hale, the scandal. Meanwhile, the storm inside the Hale estate reached its peak. The board of directors demanded explanations. Business partners threatened to withdraw. Raymond sat in silence at the head of the long mahogany table, as his estranged son presented photographs and rumors as proof that the marriage was a sham. The son's voice dripped with venom. "End this charade, father. End it, or you will lose everything." For the first time in years, Raymond felt the ground shift beneath him. He had built empires, silenced rivals, and outlived scandals. But this was different. This was not only about power. This was about the woman who had walked out of his home with tears in her eyes. The decisive moment came during the quarterly shareholders' meeting. Reporters crowded the hall, cameras flashing, voices demanding the truth. Raymond rose slowly, the contract folder resting on the podium before him. His son sat smugly at the front row, certain of victory. Raymond opened the folder, the papers crackling. He stared at the signatures, the ink that had bound Anna to him. Then he tore the pages in half, the sound echoing like thunder across the hall. Gasps filled the room. "This contract means nothing," Raymond declared. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with fire. "Anna Carter is not my wife by arrangement. She is my wife by choice. I will not allow anyone, not even my own blood, to reduce her to a transaction." He pushed the torn contract aside. "If that means I lose your investments, so be it. If that means my fortune shrinks, so be it. But I will not lose the one person who has shown me honesty in a world built on lies." The room fell into stunned silence. His son's smirk collapsed into fury. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment as Raymond Hale, the man known for his iron control, chose love over power. That evening, as Anna sat alone by the bakery window, she heard the news on the radio. Her hands trembled as the announcer's voice repeated the story of Raymond tearing apart the contract in front of shareholders. Tears blurred her vision. For the first time, she realized that the man she thought of as cold and unreachable had risked everything to defend her. A car stopped outside. Anna rose slowly, her heart hammering. When the door opened, Raymond stood there, no longer the untouchable millionaire but simply a man stripped of armor. His voice was quiet, almost pleading. "I should have defended you sooner. I should have chosen you before the world forced my hand. But I am here now, Anna. Not with a contract, with the truth, with myself." Anna's chest tightened as tears slipped down her face. She had left him behind because she thought she meant nothing. But now, standing before her, he was offering everything. The bakery smelled of warm bread and sugar that evening as Anna stood across from Raymond. His silver hair caught the glow of the single hanging lamp, but it was not his wealth or reputation that filled the room. It was the raw sincerity in his eyes. For once, there was no contract, no clause, no condition, only a man who had finally chosen to speak with his heart. Anna's voice was unsteady as she whispered, "You risked everything for me. Why?" Raymond stepped closer, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for hers. "Because you were never a contract. You were never an arrangement. You were the first person in years who spoke to me without fear, without calculation. You reminded me what it means to live, and I would rather lose everything than lose you." Her chest ached with a mix of relief and disbelief. For so long she had convinced herself that this marriage was a cage, a cruel exchange she had been forced to endure. Yet now, standing in this small bakery where her dreams had always lived, she realized she had been given something far greater than freedom. She had been given the chance to be seen, to be loved, without disguise. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Then let us start again. No papers. No signatures. Only truth." Raymond pulled a small box from his coat pocket. This time, it was not velvet-lined or heavy with diamonds. Instead, it held a simple gold band. He knelt, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Anna Carter, will you marry me, not as part of an agreement, but as the woman I love?" Her answer broke with a laugh and a sob at once. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Weeks later, the bakery opened under her mother's name. The sign above the door read warmly, and the scent of bread drifted down the street, drawing neighbors and strangers alike. On opening day, Raymond stood beside her, not as the untouchable millionaire, but as a husband, proud of the woman at his side. Their wedding was held inside that very bakery, small and intimate, with family and a few close friends. There were no flashing cameras, no contracts, no rumors, only vows spoken from the heart. When Raymond slid the simple band onto her finger, Anna knew it was not wealth or power that bound them together, but love forged through fire and trials. As they stood hand in hand, laughter and music filling the air, Anna glanced at the life she had once thought impossible. The poor girl forced into a marriage of survival had found something richer than gold. She had found a partner who chose her, and a future built not on contracts, but on truth. And in that moment, she whispered the words that would echo in her heart forever. "The only false thing about our marriage was the beginning." Oh, from that day forward, Anna and Raymond walked together, not as an arrangement, but as a promise of love, of dignity, and of a life finally their own.